Hello everyone, welcome to another Snapcraft live. Hopefully you can hear me and hopefully the stream will hold up and my network won't get taken down by my children playing Netflix and YouTube videos. Do let me know in the comments if everything's working, and if not, we can fiddle around and press some buttons and pray to the live stream gods that everything works. So if I get the nod, which I theme to, my name is Alan Pope and I work for Canonical, and welcome to this live stream all about Snapcraft. If you want to know more about Snapcraft, then the website that's on your screen now, snapcraft.io, is the place to go. I'll be pointing you to some specific places in here as we go through, but there's a lot of information in here, and we have a forum and lots of good people there who can help you if you get stuck. So I've done a bunch of these. I think this is about the fifth or sixth one of these. And the format is generally I introduce a topic, we make a snap that contains some software to illustrate the concepts, and then you can ask questions in the chat. So if you're watching live, hello, there's a whole bunch of people I see in the chat right now, including some of my colleagues. I think what I need to do right now is just make an extra person a moderator. There you go. Zigger is now a moderator. So those people with the blue names and the little spanner next to them, they are moderators. So they can help me moderate this channel and also answer your questions, because I'll be wittering on here about stuff and they can answer the questions. We do this every couple of weeks on a Wednesday at this time. Might move around in the future in order to accommodate some of the people who are in other time zones. We haven't quite figured out what time that would be yet, but we'll soon find out. If you want to know more about these, when these are going to go live, then you should follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/snapcraft.io, and you can also find us on YouTube, obviously, because that's where you're watching this. But if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get a notification when I schedule these events, or you may get a notification when I schedule these events. You can increase the chances of getting that notification if you hit the little bell in the corner. We're actually also on Mastodon. I keep forgetting to mention that. ubuntu.social/snapcraft.io. So if you prefer not to use Twitter, oh great, I can't use. Oh, there's an @ sign in there, isn't there? You have to do that, don't you? Yes, there we go. We're also on Mastodon, ubuntu.social/@snapcraft.io. So you'll find us over there, and you'll get announcements that way as well. So you can follow that account as well. Okay, so what are we going to cover this week? So this week I wanted to highlight something. There's a lot of snaps in the store, and we see a lot of discussion about a number of snaps. And if you follow us on Twitter, you'll see that we promote a number of snaps in the store, and quite a lot of them are desktop applications. They're graphical, usually in nature. They might be GTK or Qt, or it might be KDE applications. We've got a lot of those in the store. But what I want to highlight is that snaps are useful not just for graphical desktop applications, but they're also good for deploying command line applications and server applications. We've done a command line one already. We did word salad a few weeks ago. That was quite good fun. So if you go back through some of the past videos, you'll find we made a little command line application called word salad and put it in the Snap store. But what I wanted to do this week is something a little bit different, and that's make a server application. And there's not a huge amount of difference between a command line application and a server application, other than the server continues to run in the background. So what we're going to do is have a background daemon that's running, and no graphical environment shown to the user. It's all done in the background, and I'll show you how we'll make that, and we'll go through the documentation and a few other things as well. But I just wanted to highlight, just for those, you might not notice, but if you go to snapcraft.io and click the store button at the top, and then sorry, my internet connection's not great, and scroll down here, you'll see, as I said, there's a whole bunch of graphical desktop applications here. You've got popular open source applications, a few proprietary things in there, but these are all graphical applications. And then when you scroll down a little bit further, down here you can see server and cloud. And all of these applications are command line utilities, servers that run in the background, all that kind of stuff. Some of these you may recognize the name of. Google Cloud SDK, we know who they are. Docker, we've heard of that. Nextcloud, very popular. I'll come back to Nextcloud a little bit later. But these are all server-based applications, and there's a whole bunch of these in here. Rocket Chat, that kind of stuff. So this is all stuff that runs in the background. We've got some documentation all about this. If you go to docs, there's some documentation there, and I'll cover that in a bit more detail in a minute. So let's dive into what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we found a server application. My friend and colleague Martin Wimpress found this server-based application. It's a little bit old. It's just a really, really simple application that we wanted to snap. We didn't want to do anything super complicated, just to introduce the topic. And so you can see from the subject, this thing is a laughably small HTTP server. So you could think of use cases where you might want a simple little HTTP server on a machine, whether it's a Raspberry Pi in the corner or on your laptop in order to move files around your network, or on a home server or something like that. This is like the absolute simplest server we can build. Obviously, you can make something a lot more complicated with way more moving parts. This is just a super simple example, right? So what I've done, as always, I've got my agenda up here. So these are our goals for today. Learn how to snap server daemons, a whole load of other things there. I'll paste all of this underneath the video at the end of the video. So I'll introduce a few concepts and we'll build a snap. Let's dive into this bit first. So as always, I've got my snaps folder on my laptop, and I've actually made a directory and actually already half made a Snapcraft YAML, because we've kind of done this already. We've started Snapcraft YAMLs, and this is so simple. There's not a lot to it. But there's the bit that's important to do with servers is the bit I haven't done yet. And so we'll do that together, as it were. So let's just open the Snapcraft YAML. So hopefully that's big enough text for you. So again, UHTTPD is this laughably small HTTP server. This is all the metadata. We've covered this before. This is everything you get directly from the GitHub page. You know, the description, a little bit of text from down here. That's all nice and easy. It's going to be a strictly confined application. So this is interesting. It's a web server, and it's going to be strictly confined. So it's going to serve up the contents of a folder, but we don't really want that web server to have access outside of that folder, because we don't want, if I'm sharing files across my network with a colleague, I don't want them to be able to put .. / in front of the URL and then find themselves outside in my file system of my laptop, rummaging around in my etc folder or something like that, or worse, in my my home directory and get my SSH key or something like that. So that's why I'm making this a strictly confined application. I could just make it wide open, but then I would then be assuming that this product, which is 5 years old or so, is super secure, and I don't trust it. I'm sure the author is a great guy, but I don't trust that this is secure, so I'm going to keep it strictly confined, so it can only serve up one directory, which is what I'll do in this case. So there's one part for this. It's nice and easy. One part called UHTTPD. It uses the plugin Go because the application is a Golang application. Snapcraft knows how to build Go applications. I just give it the source URL to the Git repo. I'm building a particular source tag. If I didn't put that in, it would build the tip of Git. But given this is 5 years old, I don't think there's been many, if any, changes since then. So I could probably omit that and get the same result. The next thing is build packages. It needs to do some compiling, so GCC needs to be there. That's it. That's all I need to build this application. So now on to the bit where we expose this as a server. So all the applications we've built so far, we have an apps stanza, and this is the bit that exposes the binary that's inside the snap when it gets built to the outside world. And we only have one binary that we want to expose, and that's the UHTTPD binary. And we then specify command, and the path to the binary. Now, I've already built this once already. When you build them, you'll if you build the same thing, you'll see this is a little bit quirky. I'm not quite sure why this is the case. Normally, you'd expect this to be the binary name, but for some reason, it's called that. I don't know why. It's not really important, but that's the name of the binary that this will end up building. So that's the name of the binary. And I also need to give it plugs, because this is a strictly confined application. It has no access to the network or pretty much anything, really. And so I need to give it access to the network, specifically. Oops. I need to give it access to bind to a port so that it can start as a service, run in the background, bind to a TCP/IP port, and then connections can be made into this. If I didn't put that network bind in, then it wouldn't be able to start the service, and it wouldn't be able to bind to a port, and the application wouldn't run. So this is like the absolute minimum you need for a networked application to be able to bind to a port. And it's a web server, so it's going to bind to a port. What port is it going to bind to, and what directory is it going to serve up, are two questions that are, pretty important for a web server. Let's go and have a look at the documentation for this application. So if we scroll down here, lots of details, and then you'll find this bit in the documentation. It has a parameter -dir, where you specify where what the directory it's going to serve up is, and the address it's going to bind to, and the TCP/IP port. And I think somewhere in here it says something along the lines of, if you don't specify the address, it will bind to port 80 somewhere. I can't remember where I saw that, but somewhere in here it does say that. It might be in the online help. Oh, there we go, right there. Yes, there it is. So we give it a directory that we want to serve up, and a port that we want to, an address and port we want to bind to. I'm actually not going to bother specifying a port. I'll just have it bind to port 80, just like any web server. That's fine for me. But what I do need to do is tell it what directory to serve up. Now, there are a set of directories that we've looked at in the past, and those directories are specified by a bunch of environment variables. Snap user data was one of them. Here we go. So let's look at the documentation for environment variables, right? The ones we've looked at previously, snap user data. This one here is a directory for user data, and it's in home. Oh, look, home Zigger. Zigger is actually in the chat right now. Great way to get yourself embedded in the documentation. Put your own username in there. So this is a directory for user data, and there's two here, user common and user data. User common is an unversioned directory in the home directory of the user that launches an application. An unversioned, as in this example here, home, username, and then the name, the snap directory, and then the name of the snap, and then common. And whenever this snap gets updated, if a new version comes out of this snap, the contents of that directory stays the same. So this is information or configuration or data that would be common across any version of this application. So if it's updated, that data stays the same. However, there's also this versioned user data. And this one is slightly different in that it's your home directory snap, the name of the snap, and then a numbered folder which goes up for each revision that gets uploaded to the store. So if you get received revision 27 of this application, you'll have a folder in there called 27. And there's a symlink called current, which points to that. If you later upgrade your application because a new version has appeared in the store and you get an update, then a new number will be created and current will point to that. And the contents gets copied, not necessarily in that order, but the contents of the 27 folder will be copied to the 28 folder, and then the current symlink will point to the new directory. Now these are great for desktop applications and command line applications that the user is interactively running. But that's not what we're doing. We're running a server application that's going to run in the background. And I want to give it access to a directory that's outside my home. And so there's two others that we've got. Where are they? There, these two. Snap common and snap data. You'll notice the names are exactly the same as the others, but they don't have the word user in them. And so these are directories for system data that's common across revisions of a snap. That's snap common. It's exactly the same as user data, but there's a central location for this down in var. So you'll see there it's var snap, the name of the snap common, and the snap data directory is var snap, name of the snap, and then the number again. So what I want to do, the reason why I've told you all of these environment variables is because what I want to do is specify the directory that I want to put the web server files in. And that directory is going to be one of those environment variables. Now, I don't want to use snap data because that means every time I update it, I'm going to duplicate all my web content, with each revision. And I don't really need to do that. It's not versioned data. It's static files that I'm sharing with people in the office. So I'm going to use snap common. So all I do in here is put snap _ common. And what that's going to do is when someone launches this application, or when the application is launched, rather, it's going to get launched with this command line option that says, okay, the directory we want to serve up according to the documentation for this application is specified with -dir, and you just specify where you want that folder to be. So we just specify snap common, and snap common resolves to var snap, name of the snap common. And that's where I'll put my files that will get served up, okay? Awesome, so I'm going to save that. Now, so far what we've got is a snap that if I built it and installed it, it wouldn't actually run until I type the command uhttpd. And the whole point of this session is I want to do a server snap. So I want it to run in the background, get started as soon as my system starts up. I want this application to launch. I can stop it if I want to, but I want it to auto start. And the way that I do that is with this line, daemon. Now, let's go and look at the documentation and see what we have for daemon. Where is it? Service management? Is it this one? No. Where was it? Let's do a search for daemon in the documentation. App and service metadata. Okay, so this describes all the bits in that stanza. Snapcraft app and service metadata. I've put a link to this in the notes, which will, down here, which will go in the description underneath this video. So let's look for this line that I mentioned, daemon. There we go. Now, daemon has a number of options. It can be set to one of these four. Depending upon the way your server launches, you need to set it to one of these. Now, I'm going to use simple. So all I do is put daemon, or daemon. I don't know how you pronounce that. I say daemon, but I know some people say daemon, so you know what you're talking about. So I've just put daemon simple in there. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start that building while we go back and look at the documentation. Right, that's building. So let's go back and look at the documentation. So I've used simple. And what that means is the binary that runs, that is the server, right? It's not like there's lots of different commands or scripts that launch other commands and so on. It's just one binary inside this snap. And when you run it, it runs in the background. And if you tell it to stop, it will shut down. It's really, really super simple. So a lot of snaps that have servers in them use that. But there are other options. So for example, if you have a shell script that sets up the environment for your server application and then launches the application as a separate process, or if your application maybe is a Java application that spawns other Java things, Java servers, then you might use forking as an option. So you'd say daemon forking. But each one of those is really dependent upon your application and how your application is architected to launch. Mine is just a single binary, so I'm just using daemon simple. So let's go back and see. It's still building. So while that's building, let's take a look at another example. I've mentioned Nextcloud quite a few times. And the Nextcloud YAML is on GitHub. I'll stick a link to this in the docs underneath because that will be useful. I'll stick that down here. There we go. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is this is a great example of quite a complex snap. It has lots of moving parts. And the reason why I want to show you this is because the snap I'm building is fairly quick to build. It's really simple. It's one binary and it's a simple server. And the reason why I want to show you Nextcloud is because that's like the other end of the scale of complexity in terms of snap. And so it's good to be able to see, you know, a simple example that we can actually build in the duration of this video, but also a more chunky application that's got a lot more moving parts. It's a lot more complicated and has a lot more applications exposed to the outside world. So if we scroll down here, you can see here's some examples of the daemons that they have. And this has got a number of options that mine didn't use. So, for example, Apache is bundled. Excuse me. Apache is bundled inside the Nextcloud snap along with MySQL and PHP and lots of other parts. And the Apache part here has a command that's used to start it. And it also has a stop command. So if your application is the kind of thing that can be sent signals to tell it to stop, and a signal to tell it to restart or reload the configuration, we can put those kind of things in here in the app stanza. It's still a simple daemon, but there's some additional parameters in here, and those are covered in here as well. Excuse me. They're covered in this documentation I linked to earlier. But this is quite a good real-world example, so you can see how other people have architected their snaps to do that kind of thing. And as you can see here, this uses similar plugs to the ones that I'm using because it's a network aware application. It needs to use the network and it needs to bind to an IP address. And so we've got network bind. This one also might need access to files on a USB attached drive or a mounted external storage. So that's why that's added in there as well. And you can see if you scroll down here, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. You can read this at your leisure. But you can see there are examples of different types of daemons in here. In fact, I think most of them are simple daemons. Yeah, they are. And then there's additional commands which are not daemons at all, which are commands that you would run as part of the administration of Nextcloud, that kind of thing. I like the fact that they've got a command called Nextcloud Fixer. I like that. Cool. So I just want to show you that so you've got some kind of idea of what I mean, if I scroll all the way down, you'll see it is a monstrously huge YAML. Like, this is way bigger than anything we've made so far. But it's worth having a look in there because it's my kind of canonical go-to example of a complicated snap. Okay, I think I've waffled for long enough. My snap has finished building. And you'll notice here, remember I kind of glossed over it, but you see here it's built the binary and called it uhttpd.git. I haven't debugged why that is, but it doesn't really matter. So I've now got a snap that's been built. We could install that snap. Now, because it's not in the store and it's not been checked by the store review process, and it could be dangerous, I have to specify -- dangerous. Right. Hopefully this works. Okay. Installed. I wonder if there is a process running called uhttpd. Ooh, I can never type this right. There is. Look at that. So there is a process running on my machine. There are better tools for looking at processes, but this is like the absolute basics. There is a process called uhttpd.git, and you'll notice the directory that it's sharing over HTTP is this directory here. We can prove that it's certainly working if I just open up localhost, an empty directory. There's nothing in there. We could check that that's actually the right place. If I edit a text file in that directory, var snap, well, first of all, if we look in there, you'll see there's nothing in it. Yes. Let's put something in there, index.html. H1, hello world, my first HTML. Right, so now in that directory we've got an index.html, and when I refresh the browser, sure enough, there it is. So the web server is working. It is serving up files from in that directory. I could put files in there, and then someone else in the house, I could give them the IP address or host name of my laptop, and they could download whatever files are in that directory. Quite useful, I think. So I've seen some questions go by, and a couple of questions. One of them was from Yannick that says, hold on a sec, where did you specify the snap could access port 80? I didn't. By virtue of having network bind, it can bind to any port. And because this is running as a daemon, it's running as root. And when it's running as root, it has access to bind to ports below 1024. That's how. The second question was from Alejandro, who asked, how can I change the port from outside the container? Because at the moment, there's no way for me to change that port. It's the command line is set in the YAML. The answer that Martin gave was a very cunning. Tune in next week to find out. So we'll cover that in a little bit more detail in a later episode, because there's actually a whole bunch of configuration stuff I think we need to cover, but we won't have time to do today. It's quite a big topic, and I don't want to make this video super long, but there are commands called snap set and snap get. And there are configure hooks. Those are the keywords if you want to go and look for these things yourself before next time. So configure hooks and snap set and snap get, those kind of things, those will give you the right terms to look for in the documentation. That's what we'll cover another time. So I've got a web server running. There's a few commands I can use to manage this service. Again, I've put those in the notes here. You'll notice here we can use systemd tools like systemctl status, and all of the services that are installed via Snap start with snap dot, and I just pressed U and then pressed tab to autocomplete, and it filled in the name. So it's a snap, and this is the snap name, and that's the command inside the snap. And if I press enter, you'll see there's the typical output you would get from systemctl to look at any service on your system. So it just appears like any systemd unit. And you can see at the very bottom is the output from the actual command. And that's exactly what it says when you run it. If you ran it manually, it would say that, serving this directory on port 80, which is pretty cool. And I can stop it as well. I can stop and start this, and I've put those commands in here. Look, I could just do snap stop and snap start. So if I do snap stop, it's really hard to say, snap stop htttpd. Right, it's now stopped. And if I do systemctl status, it's now inactive. And we can prove it's inactive, and that definitely was the process. If we go back to the website and refresh, site can't be reached. We can start it up again with snap start uhttpd. It's now started. We can check systemctl. Sure enough, it's running. Started 3 seconds ago. Refresh this page, and it's come back. Woohoo! That was easy. Where were we? We made a simple snap. Very, very simple. I've used Go as an example here, but you could just as easily, it could have been a Python application or anything really. And all I've done is expose the single binary to the outside world using the apps stanza. And the only change I've made really compared to any of the other snaps we made in previous weeks is I've just told it that it's a daemon, and a simple daemon, which means when I install this snap, it will start. It will automatically start. If I don't want this to start anymore, let's say, for example, someone wanted me to share some files across the network, I could put them in that directory and then they can copy them off. But then from that point onwards, I don't really want to leave port 80 open all the time. I mean, I'm confident this is a strictly confined snap, and the only thing people will see is what's in that directory. But I don't necessarily want to leave a web server running on my system all the time. So what you can do is, we've already tried snap stop. What we've also got is snap disable. So that's now stopped and prevented that snap from auto starting. So if I reboot my laptop now, that web server won't start. And if I log out and log back in, it won't start. It's now disabled. In fact, if you look snap info, you can see here it's got a service, but it is disabled. The entire snap is disabled. It's inactive. So that snap won't run now. I can re-enable it very easily. Snap enable UHTTPD. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's just go back to the web browser and refresh the screen. It's not running. Re-enable it. There we go. It's enabled and it's started. If I look at the status, you see it's running. Go back to the website, refresh. It's working. It's fantastic. So you can manually start and stop it if you want to, or you can completely disable the service, and that keeps it installed. It is installed on your machine. It just won't be running. And you can do that for any snap. You could just snap disable something if you just don't want it to run. You could, for example, if your whole family are going on holiday, and you've got a Nextcloud server at home and you don't want it to update while you're away, or you want to just disable it because you're worried that someone might come in and have a look at your Nextcloud instance, you could just do snap disable Nextcloud and it would just shut it down. It's a very useful way to manage services. Yeah, pretty cool. Where were we? We were looking through those commands. So I did snap enable. I also added snap disable UHTTPD, and we did snap enable htttpd. Sweet. And I mentioned those environment variables. Excellent. Okay, let's have a quick look at the chat and see if there's any other questions. It's really good because I have my colleagues in there and I don't have to do anything because they're all answering the questions. And we've got members of the community in there as well, which is great. So everyone's joining in and answering questions. Yes. So loads of questions in there. If you have any questions for me, then as always, ask them in the chat. Join one of these live sessions. But if you're not available for these live sessions, don't worry. We have a super active forum. If you go to snapcraft.io, there's a link to the forum on the top of the site, and the forum is super active and everyone's super friendly. There's developers of Snapd and Snapcraft who hang out there, members of the community, myself, Martin. We try and answer questions, as quickly as possible, but sometimes you might need to tag us. I'm known as Popey on the forum, and if you just @Popey on there, it'll tag me and I'll get a notification up here like you see. And Martin, my colleague, is @Wimpy. You'll tag him as well. And all the other people you see in the chat, Sergio and Claudio and Zigga, are all on that forum. So, if you're trying to package something, some server-based application, and you're getting into trouble and you can't figure out how to unblock yourself, just drop by the forum and ask us questions. We're super keen to resolve these kind of questions. But also, don't forget, we have documentation for everything over on snapcraft.io. Just click the docs button. There's tons of documentation in here. If there's anything missing, then bring it up on the forum. If anything doesn't make sense, or you think it needs clarification, then you can bring it up on the forum. But actually, all of this documentation is fed from the forum itself. They're wiki posts, so people can actually edit these documents directly in the forum. It makes it a lot easier for us to update the documentation. Just edit it in the forum, and it gets published straight through here on a regular basis. So yeah, that's everything you need to know in order to publish simple server snaps. And again, do have a look at the Nextcloud Snapcraft YAML. The other tip I would give you is, if you're looking in the store, did I have the store open somewhere? No. Where is it? Documentation environment, service, no. Okay. So in the store, if there's a particular snap which you think is a bit like the one you're building, you can often find that for many of these applications, well, for some of them, they might actually have in the store page information about the application. Yeah, there we go. This one here, this contact canonical, actually takes you to a GitHub URL. And in there, oh look, there's a Snapcraft YAML. So I could learn how this snap was made. I think this is one of the nice things about Snapcraft, is being able to learn from other people's Snapcraft YAMLs. So if you're building something that seems to be a bit like something that's already in the store, either look at the store page and follow the links from there to see if you can find the Snapcraft YAML, or alternatively, just do a Google search or a search directly on GitHub or whatever platform for Snapcraft YAML and the name of the application, and you may well find that the Snapcraft YAML is publicly available. Some aren't. Proprietary apps, often the Snapcraft YAML is not publicly available, but there's plenty of examples out there on GitHub and on GitLab and on Bitbucket. There's plenty of examples for you to learn from. I think that's everything I wanted to cover today. I don't know if anyone on the chat, Martin or anyone else, has got anything that I missed or anything I should have mentioned that I didn't. I'll let them speak up. But yeah, I think that's your brief introduction to building a server snap. It's not too painful. It's just like building any other command line application, but adding a couple of extra lines. Yeah, Yannick says learning by looking at somebody else's work is great. Yeah, the amount of work that Kyle and the Nextcloud people put into that Nextcloud snap is pretty amazing, and that's my go-to reference for a lot of things. And Martin says, oh, Andrew has a good question. Yes. So Andrew's asked, can one daemon depend on another to ensure one is started before another? I think you can. I've never done that, but I think there is a start after option, isn't there? Or is there not? Restart. I thought there was a start after. Isn't there just an after? Oh, Martin says it's coming soon. So, work in progress. That would be good. Okay. Right. I think we're done. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve or any topics you want us to cover, then do let us know in the comments below, or you can send us lovely tweets to the Twitter account, which is twitter.com/snapcraftio. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/snapcraftio, or if you prefer Mastodon, you can use that as well. And you can drop by the forum. Did I leave that somewhere? There we go. forum.snapcraft.io as well. Thanks again, everyone, for watching, and thank you to all my colleagues at Canonical who've answered all the questions in the chat. It's always nice to see you guys there helping out during these sessions. It's really, really good fun. Thanks again, everyone. See you all next time. Bye-bye.